So what makes a city smart, and what is the role of IoT in a smart city? These questions, plus the fundamental infrastructures that are essential to building a smart city, are what our panelists will answer here at TIA 2016, right from the Dell TIA NOW studio. Joining us are Amanda Hodges. She's Global OEM Solutions and IoT Marketing Executive Director at Dell. We also have next to her is Michael Zeto. He's General Manager and Executive Director for Smart Cities at AT&T. And next to him is Randy Frantz. He's Director of Telecom Solutions at Esri. And on the end we have Juliet Shavi, President and Chief Executive Officer at SmartMark Communications. And gang, thanks for being with us. I hope I got all your names and titles correct.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
I know you have a similar panel within the TIA 2016 conference right after this, so we appreciate you being with us in the Dell TIA NOW studio. And Amanda, by the way, thank you for sponsoring our studio once again this year.
Great, thanks. We're happy to be here.
Great to be here. Great to have you. Randy, I want to start with you. I think in some of our pre-show discussions and our pre-show notes, you had made a comment, and I thought it'd be good to start off with this. You said the concept of smart cities is loose at best, and paths to get there are even looser. Can you tell us what you meant by that?
Well, I think if you look at smart cities, if you ask 20 cities what was the definition of a smart city, they probably get 30 different answers. And the reason is there's no one single definition. And to me, a smart city is any city that uses technology to improve the life of their citizens. And I think that is a very broad definition, but it also lends itself to many different applications that could be implemented. And they don't have to be the big ones. A lot of times people think, well, we got to rip out all the street lights or put an intelligent transportation system in, or replace everything, all the infrastructure, and that's not necessary. As this morning, Robin Chase said, use the capacity that's already there. Glendale, California came up with an app that they gave to their citizens where they could go out and take pictures of potholes, pictures of street lights that were out, using the capacity and the capabilities they already had, uploading those into the city database, produce a map, shows where all the problems in the city are, give that to the work crews. They don't have to send inspectors out there. Citizens are engaged. They're seeing that the city is improving their lives by fixing things. So those kind of applications use the capacity that's there and the capabilities, and they're very simple applications that can be built and deployed quickly with low cost.
Mike, from a carrier's perspective, how would you define a smart city, and what makes a city smart?
Yeah, so a smart city uses technology to connect people, processes, and assets, right? In order to reduce cost, drive efficiency, improve public safety, drive economic development initiatives, and overall, as Randy said, improve the lives of citizens. So I think that's the goal of the smart city. And what makes a city smart? At the end of the day, the smart cities concept has been around for 15, 20 years, right? And it's nobody's answered the question yet. There's a lot of smart projects, but there's not a lot of smart cities, right? So I think what makes a city smart is when a group of entities get together and develop a holistic strategy that can be implemented and scaled across the city that ties back to what that definition of a smart city should be for that region.
Amanda, I wanted to ask you about the role of the Internet of Things in a smart city, and of course we've gone down this road before. We've talked about this a number of times already. I want to ask you if you can give us maybe a use case or example of how IoT plays a role, and maybe something aside from like street lights that we've heard about.
We hear about parking and street lights all the time. So Internet of Things absolutely is a enabling technology to smart cities. I think it's kind of bumped out big data in the hype curve, but it's not just Internet of Things. It's Internet of Things and all the underlying technologies around big data and analytics and cloud and security, and the ability for everyone to be able to leverage those technologies due to kind of falling costs and increased capabilities. One great example that we have is V5 Technologies. So they do video security and surveillance. And what's unique about them is they use solar panel to actually power their devices. So as you think about cities that have existing infrastructure, it might be hard to invest in new technology or get equipment that's wired or digital. V5 technology allows for a simple way to drop these in across the city and collect that data real time and enable it either to the data center or the cloud wirelessly, and use that Internet of Things technology to get better safety and security for their citizens.
Juliet, I wanted to ask you about the essentials for building a smart city, but not so much infrastructure, but really from a people perspective.
Right, when we talk about smart city, we're talking about technologies and services, but we also want people to be smarter, because technology is only as good as the people that can use it and make changes in their behavior and their lives. So, putting in-home devices, energy efficiency devices in homes, it's great, but unless someone's going to actually flick off the light at the end of the day, it has to be a marriage between customers and technology. And a very important critical part of building a city is educating the people inside the city to use the technologies, educate them on what they are, how do they, there are a lot of non-computer users in certain geographic locations, so how do you get these type of people engaged? People are more and more on their mobile device. How do you use that mobile device as a very customer-friendly application to integrate with the city itself? So ultimately, I think a smart city is only as good as the people and the technology married together.
Juliet made a great point, Abe. At the end of the day, citizen engagement is a key component to this, and the way that the adoption is going to be driven, and a lot of the funding will be driven from the top down, federal government down, will be if the citizens voice a need to live in a smarter city, right? And a lot of those opportunities that you mentioned, and by engaging the citizens, when we talk to city leadership, I don't know that they're talking to the citizens enough about what problems do you really need us to help you solve using IoT technology, if you will, which is really the foundation of a smart city, right? It is the Internet of Things technologies that are out there. So tying the citizen into the equation is very important.
I wanted to ask Randy, really all of you, but I'll start off with Randy and Mike and Amanda if you want to jump in as well as Juliet. Is there some kind of, is there a master plan to a smart city? Is that how you begin, or is it more of an organic planning process where you just kind of go through trial and error? Is that the stage we're in right now, Randy?
I think it's a combination of both. I think somebody needs to come up with an idea, a concept that's going to, as Mike said, improve the lives of the citizens. But then there needs to be some overarching organizational structure that drives that forward. And I think that's where the city government comes in. Its role is to improve the lives of its citizens. And I think there's going to be a public-private partnership that's going to evolve, because the cities don't have all the latest and greatest in the technology, nor do they know where perhaps technology is going. And that's where Dell, AT&T, and other companies can step in and say, hey, this is what the technology can deliver, but you need that driver of the public sector to say, hey, I've got a goal, I want to solve these problems for my constituents, my citizens. Let's all partner together and make it happen.
I think people are searching for that ideal blueprint. How do we take this model and replicate it across cities? The point that Juliet touched on, which is, the citizens, there's kind of two challenges. One is multiple stakeholders, right? There's the citizens, the governments, the universities, the corporations, all of these organizations that have different needs and wants. And so thinking about how those get prioritized. And then on the second side, there's just implementing the solutions, and there's not one company or one organization that can do that. It really is a partnership across different organizations, and in some cities that's being solved by groups and consortiums. In Austin, there's an Austin City Up organization that's being pulled together with stakeholders across all these different groups to help inform the government and help provide some of those opportunity areas that can be targeted, and then have the forum for all those groups to come together to solve it.
And you have a couple of challenges there that you both mentioned, right? First off, the cities are all siloed themselves into departments, so you need to get inside of the city and break those silos down to get them to think more holistically about that strategy. And then, one of the first things we did when we stood the business up was to leverage our knowledge inside of IoT and that broad ecosystem, right? Because it is an ecosystem play. No one provider, right, regardless of where they sit in the ecosystem, can solve all the problems. So the net of it was we actually developed a framework that we could deploy into cities and lead that way, because the cities don't have the resources to pull everything together on their own. So it was important for us to be able to go in as thought leaders and as technology partners of the cities and have something for them to start with, right, where we brought all the right pieces together and then could figure out which vertically integrated solutions would solve the problems that were the real challenges within that region, right, and within that city.
was going to say another, the white elephant in the room is funding, right? For smart city. I mean, it's a lot of talk, defining a vision, creating some standard approach towards what actually is a smart city, making a business case for people to buy into, whether it's the government, whether it's the private sectors. I mean, there has to be obviously all of these eco-friendly and, great technology innovation going on, but somebody has to fund it at the end of the day. And so I think one of the things we'll see is among the municipalities, some vying for a little bit of competition among who wants to be the first, who's going to be the first smart city. Who's going to fund it, and then what are the benefits? Can you quantify those benefits in a measurable ROI way, so all the stakeholders can recoup on their investment?
Yeah, if you look at the funding, or I guess the cities that have actually made progress, right? It's usually funding coming from the government being pushed down into some form of public-private partnership, right? To Randy's point earlier. So there's going to have to be that component there. For sure, but when you go back to smart cities has been around in concept for a long time. The three problems I think have always been policy, procurement, and then funding. So that funding piece has got to be included into any holistic strategy that's going to be developed by a city, or they'll never get scale. There'll be all those smart projects, but never a smart city.
Yeah, and I think this is where the Internet of Things gives an opportunity to have disruptive business models and look at different sources of funding outside of just the government. And the City of Ireland actually funded a grant with Dell and 7 universities to help think about alternative funding models. So as an example, as the city pays to collect data, how do they actually use that data and sell it for secondhand uses? Obviously a lot of privacy and regulations around that. The lighting example is another one, as companies out, as Barcelona outfitted their lights with LED lights. They put communications and sensors in it to provide other data, to telecoms and different companies around the world. So thinking about self-funding business models is another way we're going to be able to break through and help, raise cities up overall.
I wanted to finish with the most exciting topic, standards.
Oh no. Who wants to take that one?
She was raising her hand.
Standards, oh no.
No, so the question is this. So standards, it's always a challenge for standards to keep pace with advancing technologies and adopting those standards and building those guidelines. It seems like the smart city planning space would be the most challenging space, at least right now. Also the Internet of Things as well. Would you agree with that? And how does standards play a role?
I think in any long-term technology adoption implementation, standards play a role. Building frameworks for which people can integrate technologies and roll out technologies is critical to, enabling any type of technology innovation. I think that it's going to be a hybrid of innovation, creativity, people and technology people that can help integrate. And also, we were talking a little bit about ecosystems and different players. So finding some level of standardization where different types of entities can communicate with each other and integrate with each other and build together, collaborate, I think is very critical to this vision of a smart city.
That was well done. Randy, anything?
Well, I like what you're saying about standards is always a challenge. And I think the nice thing about cities is they'll do something and then they'll share it with other cities. It's in the public domain. And so perhaps doing things in a city allows you to say what works, and then let's focus on the standard to make that happen. So I think the cities can really be a springboard for the IoT development on standards as well as the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you really have the opportunity, I think, to not just drive technology standards, but standards around metrics and KPIs and things of that nature that you can tie back to ISO. So I think there's some opportunities there from the standards perspective as well.
Dell's role in the standard space as far as smart cities?
I think it's all our responsibility to help drive that. I think the trick is really to not let it slow you down. And in the meantime, think about solutions, whether it's the ecosystems and the blueprints or whether it's integration software that can help continue to move us forward and work on these solutions as the standards are being involved.
Well, it's always it's enjoyable for TIA Now to talk about a real kind of incubator or test case, use case that incorporates IoT technologies and 5G technologies that we always talk about. Smart cities is always a fun topic because it includes so many of those technologies. So Juliet, thanks for joining us. It was nice meeting you. Randy, thank you very much for being with us. Mike, it was good meeting you.
Thanks, Ed.
And Amanda, as always, and thank you very much once again for sponsoring our studio this year.
Great, thank you.
Great
Thank you very much, guys.
Right, thank you.
And thank you for joining us at the TIA 2016 Network of the Future Conference right here from the Dell TIA Now studio. For more coverage, you can please visit tianow.org. So long.